I always thought my wedding day would be the happiest moment of my life. You know, one of those fairy tale days where everything feels magical. The flowers, the music, the people you love smiling at you like you're the center of the universe. And for a moment, it was exactly that. The sun was shining, my dress fit like a dream, and I could feel my heart pounding with excitement and love. But then the whispers started. At first, I thought it was just nerves, that maybe the groom was taking a few extra minutes to calm himself before walking down the aisle. But minutes turned into half an hour. Then an hour. Guests shifted in their seats. My maid of honor kept checking her phone. My dad asked the coordinator if there'd been a delay. Still, no Damon. I stood there, bouquet trembling in my hands, forcing a smile that felt more and more like a mask. I kept telling myself, he loves you. He's just nervous. He'll be here. But he never came. And when my maid of honor finally showed me her phone screen, I couldn't breathe. One text. Just one. I'm sorry, I can't do this. I'm with Vanessa. Vanessa, his ex, the one he swore was just a part of the past, the one I asked about 100 times and was always told, you have nothing to worry about. He left me, at the altar, for her. I remember the silence in the room when we told the guests, the gasps, the awkward looks, the pity. God, the pity burned worse than the heartbreak. I felt like I was floating outside my body, watching a nightmare unfold in slow motion. But what Damon didn't know was that life has a funny way of circling back. Because years later, he'd sit in a pew, silent, stunned, watching me walk down the aisle again. Only this time, it wasn't for him. And this time, I was the one smiling. Karma? She never misses a wedding. I met Damon at a charity gala I helped organize. One of those glittery, high society events where everything looks perfect on the surface. I was running around, headset in my ear, clipboard in hand, praying the string quartet wouldn't cancel last minute. He walked in late, dressed in a midnight blue suit, and somehow managed to make the room feel like it had slowed down just for him. He was smooth. Too smooth, honestly. Said he owned a startup that was about to take off, though he kept the details vague. But there was something about his confidence, the way he looked at me like I was the only person in a crowd of hundreds. He asked for my number before the event ended, and I gave it to him. Our first date was spontaneous. He whisked me away for rooftop cocktails under city lights. He listened like every word I said mattered. He remembered my favorite flower after one conversation. He sent me breakfast on mornings I had early meetings. There were candlelit dinners, weekend getaways, handwritten notes tucked into my bag. It felt like I'd stepped into a romance novel I didn't know I was starring in. But there were moments, tiny things, like how he always avoided questions about his past, how his phone never left his pocket, never buzzed in front of me. I told myself it was nothing. Everyone has a few secrets, right? And when he surprised me with a trip to the mountains, I thought it was just another one of his grand gestures. But then, standing at the edge of a scenic overlook, he dropped to one knee and pulled out a ring. I said yes. Of course I said yes. It felt like fate. Like maybe after years of planning other people's happy endings, I was finally getting mine. But in hindsight, some fireworks burned too hot to last. At first, it was little things, subtle enough that I could pretend they didn't matter. Damon always kept his phone on silent, face down on the table, or stuffed deep in his jacket pocket. If it buzzed during dinner, he'd casually glance at it and excuse himself to the other room. He said it was work, urgent deals, investors, clients across time zones. He was always traveling. New York one week, LA the next, then Chicago for some last-minute pitch. I wanted to believe him. He was building something big, he said. All this hustle was for our future. But the nights felt longer when he was away. His calls became shorter, rushed. I'd hear voices in the background, sometimes laughter, women's laughter, and when I asked about it, he'd get defensive. "Lila, come on. You think I'd be doing all this for you if I was messing around?" He made me feel guilty for even asking, like I was the one ruining things with my insecurity. And I wanted to trust him. I chose to trust him. I kept telling myself love meant giving someone the benefit of the doubt. Until that dinner. We were at this cozy little Italian place, tucked away on a quiet street. It was our 3rd anniversary, and Damon had actually planned the evening for once. I remember feeling like maybe we were finally settling into something real. Then she walked in. Vanessa. Tall, poised, striking in a way that made the whole room tilt for a second. She locked eyes with Damon before she even saw me. Her smile froze the moment she noticed I was sitting there. "Oh, Damon? Wow. I didn't expect to see you here." The way she said it, like it meant more than it should have. Damon stood up quickly, his body stiff, his smile forced. He introduced us reluctantly. "Lila, this is Vanessa, an old friend." She gave me a polite nod, but her eyes never left him. After she left, I asked about it. Of course I did. He shrugged it off, barely even looked at me. "We dated years ago. It was nothing serious. Just a coincidence, babe. Don't make it weird." But it was weird. Everything about it was weird. The way he tensed up when she appeared. The way she looked at him. The way he downplayed it all. Like it was no big deal. I felt something shift that night. Like a thread had been pulled loose and was quietly unraveling behind the scenes. But I stayed. Because I was already in love. Already engaged. Already planning a life with this man. And I wasn't ready to admit that maybe I'd made a mistake. But Vanessa wasn't just a ghost from the past. She was a shadow creeping into my future. The morning of my wedding felt like something out of a movie. The sky was painted the softest shade of blue, with just the right touch of clouds drifting lazily across the sun. My dream venue, a glass house overlooking a quiet lake, was dressed in white roses and soft golden lights. Everything was exactly how I'd imagined it. My dress, custom-made and hand-stitched with delicate pearls, fit like it was sewn from a memory I'd carried since childhood. My hair was pinned up with small blossoms tucked in, and my makeup was soft, glowing. I felt beautiful, hopeful. The guests began to arrive, their laughter floating in through the open windows. My bridesmaids flitted in and out of the dressing room, fussing over details, adjusting my veil, pouring champagne. I remember looking in the mirror and whispering to myself, "You're about to become his wife. This is real. This is happening." But as the ceremony time approached, something felt off. The wedding coordinator checked her clipboard, a little frown forming. "Is Damon here yet?" My maid of honor looked down at her phone. No messages, no calls. "It's fine," I said, more to myself than anyone else. "He's probably just stuck in traffic or talking to the officiant. You know how he gets before big moments." I tried to believe my own words, but my heart started to pound harder with every passing minute. Guests were now seated. The string quartet had begun playing softly, unsure of whether to continue or pause. The officiant was glancing toward the entrance every 30 seconds. I stayed hidden in the bridal suite, staring at the door, waiting for Damon to walk through it with that easy smile and say something like, "Sorry, babe, you know me. Always fashionably late." But the door never opened. We called. No answer. Texted. No response. His best man hadn't heard from him either. 20 minutes. 30. 45. The atmosphere shifted from excitement to confusion, then to concern. Guests whispered, trying not to look worried. My mother sat silently in the front row, her hands clenched tight in her lap. Then, an hour after we were supposed to say our vows, my maid of honor stepped into the room. She looked pale. She didn't say a word, just held out her phone. And there it was. A single message. "I'm sorry, I can't do this. I'm with Vanessa." I read it once, twice. The words didn't feel real. I looked up at her, waiting for her to say it was some kind of cruel joke, but the look in her eyes told me everything. He was gone. Not just late, not just nervous. Gone. And he hadn't run off alone. He'd left me on our wedding day, for her. The silence that followed was unbearable, like the entire day had been paused, muted, stripped of color and sound. I stood there, in the dress I'd dreamed about, surrounded by flowers and friends and love. And all I could feel was the hollow space where he should have been. In the days that followed, I barely left my bed. The silence in my apartment echoed louder than any heartbreak playlist ever could. The wedding decorations, the dress, the gifts, all reminders of a love story that never reached its final chapter. The media got wind of it too. Some wedding guest, probably trying to help, posted about what happened. And suddenly I wasn't just heartbroken. I was humiliated. Everyone wanted to know how the girl who planned dream weddings got left at her own. I felt broken. Not just because he left, but because I'd given everything to someone who took it all and walked away like it was nothing. My confidence, my trust, my future, he took it with him. But then came the quiet, the space between the pain. And in that stillness, something began to shift. I packed my bags, left the city behind, and moved somewhere no one knew my name. I started therapy. Real, raw, uncomfortable therapy. I cried. I screamed. I unpacked years of ignoring red flags and blaming myself for someone else's betrayal. And piece by piece, I started building a life that didn't revolve around him. I threw myself into my work. Event planning was always my passion, and now it became my power. I opened my own boutique agency, booked clients who loved me, built a team that respected me. I stopped shrinking myself to make other people comfortable. I started wearing red lipstick again, laughing loudly, dancing alone in my kitchen on Friday nights. I didn't need someone to complete me anymore. I had done that all by myself. And then, almost like the universe needed to send a little reminder of just how far I'd come, I heard about Damon. Turns out, running off with your ex doesn't guarantee a happy ending. Their relationship, that whirlwind love they sacrificed so much for, turned toxic within months. Fights, lies, money problems. And his business? The one he used to impress everyone, to justify all those late nights and secret trips? It crumbled. Investors pulled out. Legal issues surfaced. Clients walked away. They imploded the moment they started their so-called new life. But I was just getting started. Meeting Jace felt like exhaling after holding my breath for too long. He wasn't flashy or loud. He didn't sweep in with grand promises or overwhelming charm. He was gentle, steady, the kind of man who remembered the little things, like how I took my coffee, or the way I always carried a notebook in my bag. He was an architect, and the way he spoke about buildings made you believe they had souls. He talked about foundations, strong ones, and maybe that's what drew me to him most. I'd built something beautiful once before, but it was on shaky ground. This time, I wanted something real, something lasting. Jace never made me question where I stood. There were no disappearing acts, no mysterious late-night calls, no exes lurking in the shadows. He was present, honest, warm, We didn't fall in love in a whirlwind. We grew into it. Slowly. Patiently. He met me where I was, broken pieces and all, and never once asked me to hurry up or move on. He just stayed. And that kind of love, it heals you in ways you didn't know you needed. A year after our first kiss, he proposed. Nothing over the top, just the two of us, watching the sunrise from our favorite spot near the cliffs. I said yes with a full heart and steady hands. This time, I knew. Planning the wedding was surreal. I wasn't just creating another perfect event. I was building our day. Something sacred, honest, and full of joy. The guest list came together easily. Friends, family, people who'd stood by me through the darkest days. And then, an RSVP arrived. I almost missed it, buried in the stack of returned envelopes. I opened it casually, expecting another cousin's +1 request. But no, it was signed Damon, invited through a mutual friend who didn't know or didn't care about the history. He was coming to my wedding, after everything. The morning of my wedding felt different this time. Not a single nerve, not a trace of fear, just peace. The sun spilled golden light across the venue, a restored vineyard with cascading greenery and open skies. Everything was soft, elegant, intimate, just like Jace and I had imagined. My dress flowed like water, simple but breathtaking, and my heart felt whole. Not perfect, but whole. As guests began to arrive, laughter and warmth filled the air. There was no tension, no whispers, until he appeared. Damon. He stood at the edge of the crowd, looking like he had walked straight out of a storm. His suit didn't quite fit the way it used to. His face was drawn, eyes hollow. He looked older, not in years, but in wear. Life had clearly not been kind to him. When his gaze met mine, I saw it, the flicker of disbelief. Like he hadn't expected me to be glowing. He hadn't expected joy. He hadn't expected me to have risen from the ashes he left me in. I watched his eyes scan the venue, the smiling faces, the elegant simplicity of everything I'd created. He was seeing, maybe for the first time, what he'd thrown away. Then he tried to speak to me. He stepped forward, stopped short by my maid of honor, but still managed to catch my attention with a soft, broken, "Lila, can we talk?" I looked at him, really looked at him, and for the first time, I felt nothing. No anger, no pain, just clarity. Vanessa was gone, long gone from what I'd heard. He was bitter, broke, and alone, trying to crawl back into a story he chose to walk out of. I smiled. Not with cruelty, but with the calm power of a woman who has healed. And I said, "No, Damon. That chapter is closed." Then I turned. I walked down the aisle toward Jace, toward the man who never once made me question my worth. The man who stood at the altar with eyes full of quiet devotion and hands that had never let go. I took a deep breath as the music swelled and slipped my hand into his. And just before I said "I do," I caught a glimpse of Damon in the crowd. Alone, frozen, watching. He watched as I said "I do" to someone who truly deserved me. In the days after the wedding, I found myself waking up with the softest kind of happiness. The kind that doesn't scream or dance around. It just rests in your chest, like it belongs there. Jace and I jetted off to Italy for our honeymoon. We wandered through cobbled streets in Florence, sipped wine under Tuscan sunsets, kissed by fountains in Rome. It was the kind of trip where you forget time exists. The kind of love that feels like a safe place you never want to leave. One afternoon, while we were sitting on a quiet balcony overlooking the hills, my phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. I didn't need to open it to know who it was. I stared at the screen for a few seconds, then tapped. I'm sorry. Just 2 words. No explanation. No begging. Just the weight of a man finally realizing what he'd lost. I looked at the message for a moment, letting it sit in my mind. And then, I locked my phone and slipped it back into my purse. I didn't need to answer. There was nothing left to say. Because this wasn't about him anymore. It never really was. My healing didn't need his apology. My joy wasn't built on his regret. And my peace? It came from within. Not from proving anything, not from revenge, but from choosing me. Damon's downfall wasn't my victory. It was just life. Karma, maybe. A mirror reflecting the choices he made. And mine reflected strength, growth, a love that didn't come from desperation, but from depth. Not every story needs a grand revenge. Sometimes rising is enough. To anyone out there who's ever been blindsided, left behind, or made to feel like you weren't enough, hear me now. You are not broken. You are not too much. You are not unlovable. You are a story still unfolding. And heartbreak? It's not your ending. It's just one sharp chapter in a novel that's still being written. I know what it feels like to be shattered, to question your worth, to wonder if the pain will ever stop echoing. But I also know the quiet, unstoppable strength that grows when you choose yourself, day after day, even when it's hard. Healing doesn't look perfect. It's messy. Some days it'll feel like you're dragging yourself through the fog. But one day, you'll wake up and feel the sun again, and realize you are glowing in a way they never could dim. So if you're standing at the edge of your own, I can't take this anymore moment, take the step. Walk away from the love that confuses you, from the words that cut you, from the people who only show up when it benefits them, and walk toward peace, toward the life that's waiting for you on the other side of grief, toward the version of you that knows her worth. If you've had that moment, big or small, where you finally chose you, drop it in the comments. Tell us your moment of strength. Let's celebrate each other's glow up. Because you're healing, it's not just your power, it's your superpower. And if stories like this speak to your soul, stories of rising from the ashes, of healing, of taking your power back, hit that subscribe button. Because here we don't just tell stories, we reclaim them. We honor every heartbreak and every comeback. So join the journey. Subscribe for more real-life moments that remind you you're not alone, and your glow-up is just getting started. Your next chapter? It starts right here.